It was just another Tuesday evening when Mark stepped into the elevator of his 14-story apartment building. He lived on the 8th floor, a number so familiar his thumb could find it in the dark. But this time, he pressed the button, and nothing happened. No light, no soft chime, just a cold, humming silence. Then the doors closed, and the car began to move upward on its own. The digital display flickered between numbers that didn't exist. Floor 13, floor 15, floor 22. His building only had 14 floors. Mark told himself it was a glitch, maybe a sensor error. But the elevator didn't stop. It kept climbing, faster now, the air growing heavy and thin. The real panic set in when he saw frost forming on the metal walls. Here's the thing about elevators. They're designed with multiple safety brakes, thermal sensors, and emergency stop mechanisms. But none of that mattered because Mark wasn't in his building anymore. At least, not the version he knew. When the car finally screeched to a halt, the display read floor -1. The doors opened to a corridor that stretched into absolute darkness. This is where it gets worse. Negative floors in elevators are usually basement levels. Parking, storage, utility rooms. But this corridor had windows. Tall, arched windows showing a night sky with 3 moons. Mark stepped out because the elevator doors closed behind him and the call button was dead. He had no choice. His phone had no signal, not even an emergency dial tone. He walked for what felt like 20 minutes, passing door after door. Each one was made of a different material. Wood, steel, bone. One door was covered in fresh human teeth arranged in a spiral. Mark didn't touch it, but he heard something from the other side. A wet, rhythmic sound, like breathing, but slower and deeper, as if the thing behind that door was the size of a truck. Then he found the staircase. It went down, not up. The steps were worn smooth, as if millions of people had walked them before him. Mark followed the staircase for 3 hours. His watch stopped working. His hunger disappeared. So did his thirst. That's when he understood. He wasn't in a parallel dimension. He was inside a space that didn't follow physical laws. A nightmare architecture designed to break human perception one step at a time. At the bottom of the staircase was a single elevator. Old, rusted. The button panel had only 2 choices. Floor 0 and floor 100. Mark pressed 0. The doors opened onto a city. But it was his city. Same streets, same buildings, same coffee shop on the corner where he bought his morning espresso. Except there were no people, no cars, no birds, just the wind and a single light in the sky that never moved. He walked to his apartment building. The lobby was identical, but the security desk was empty. His key worked. The apartment was exactly as he left it. Clothes on the chair, half-eaten cereal on the table, TV remote next to the sofa. But the television was on. Static. And the static had a voice. It whispered his name over and over, but each time the voice was slightly different, slightly younger, as if the static was playing recordings of him from different ages. Mark ran back to the elevator in the lobby. This time, every button glowed red. He pressed 8. The doors closed, and the car moved sideways. Not up or down. Sideways. For 10 minutes. When the doors opened, he was in a hospital hallway. Bright fluorescent lights, the smell of antiseptic, and a nurse in old-fashioned clothing, face blank, holding a clipboard. She handed him a form. It said his name, date of birth, and under cause of death, elevator accident. Age 8. But Mark was 34, and he remembered dying at 8. The memory hit him like a collapsed lung. The old elevator in his childhood home. The broken cable. The fall. The sudden stop. He had been dead for 26 years. Every memory after that was a construct. A dream loop designed to make him forget. The apartment, the job, the friends. None of it was real. He looked back at the nurse, but she was gone. In her place was a door made of polished black glass. No handle, just his reflection staring back. Except his reflection smiled first. Then it pressed its hand against the glass and whispered through the surface, "You're not ready for the wrong floor yet. Go back." And the elevator doors behind him opened again. Mark stepped inside without thinking. The panel now showed only one button, a floor labeled lobby. He pressed it. The ride took 3 seconds. The doors opened to his actual building. Real sunlight, real noise, a neighbor with a dog. But here's the detail that still keeps him awake. The elevator's maintenance record was updated that morning. It said the car had never moved from the ground floor for the past 4 days. Mark lives on the 8th floor now, but he never takes the elevator. He uses the stairs, counting each step twice. And every night, he hears a soft hum coming from the elevator shaft. Not machinery, something else. Something that knows his name and the exact floor where he first died. He just doesn't know if that floor is above him or below him anymore. But the story doesn't end there. Because 3 weeks later, Mark's neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Harlow, knocked on his door. She asked why he always took the stairs. Mark lied, said he needed the exercise. Mrs. Harlow smiled, and her teeth were just slightly too long. She said, "The wrong floor finds everyone eventually. You just got there early." Then she walked back to her apartment and closed the door. Mark never saw her again. Her unit was empty the next day. No furniture, no sign anyone had ever lived there. Just a single button on her kitchen floor. It said call. Mark didn't press it. He left the apartment and moved to a different building across town. One with only 3 floors. No elevator at all. For 6 months, everything felt normal. He started a new job, made new friends, almost forgot about the black glass door and the nurse with no face. Almost. Then one night, his new building's landlord installed an elevator. Renovations, the landlord said, added value to the property. The elevator was small, old, and looked like it had been salvaged from somewhere else. Mark recognized the scratch pattern on the doors. He confronted the landlord. The landlord laughed and said the elevator came from a storage warehouse. No markings, no serial number, just delivered one morning with a note that said, "For the 8th floor tenant." Mark lived on the 2nd floor. He checked his lease. There was no 8th floor in this building. But that night, he dreamed of the black glass door again. His reflection was gone. In its place was a hallway of doors, each one labeled with a year of his life. Age 8, age 14, age 22, age 34. The last door was unlabeled. He opened it. Behind the door was an elevator car, the same car from the old building. The floor panel had one button lit. It said wrong floor. Mark tried to wake up. He couldn't. He tried to step back. The door closed behind him. The elevator didn't move, but the numbers on the display started counting backward. -2, -3, -10, -60. The air turned to ice. The walls started sweating a black liquid that smelled like burnt hair. Then the car stopped. The doors opened to a room filled with clocks. Thousands of clocks, each one showing a different time, each one ticking out of sync. In the center of the room was a desk. On the desk, a logbook. Mark opened it. Every page listed a name, a date of birth, and an elevator floor. Some floors were positive numbers. Most were negative. His name was near the back. Next to it, a handwritten note. Returned early. Send again. He didn't understand what that meant until he turned the page. The next name was his mother's. Date of death marked as next Tuesday. Cause of death, elevator doors. No further details. Mark slammed the book shut. The clock stopped. All at once. The silence was worse than the ticking. Then one clock started again. It was counting backward. As it ticked, the room grew smaller. The walls moved inward. The ceiling lowered. Mark ran back to the elevator, but the doors were gone. In their place was a wall of polished glass. He saw his reflection again. This time, The reflection cried. Not Mark. He was frozen. The reflection reached out, touched the glass, and mouthed 3 words. Wake up now. He woke up in his new apartment. In bed, sweating. The clock on his nightstand showed 3:33 a.m. He stayed awake until sunrise. Then he called his mother. She didn't answer. He drove to her house. Her car was in the driveway. Her front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was normal except the elevator. His mother didn't have an elevator. She lived in a single-story house. But there it was, in the hallway. Small, old, the same scratch pattern. The doors were slightly open. Mark pushed them apart. Inside, a single button. Floor 8. He called the police. They found no elevator, just a hallway with a closet. The officers suggested Mark see a doctor. He agreed. He saw 3 doctors, 2 psychiatrists and a neurologist. All of them said he was healthy. No hallucinations. No history of mental illness. One psychiatrist, an older woman with kind eyes, asked Mark one question. Have you ever taken an elevator and felt it go the wrong way? Mark said yes. The psychiatrist nodded. She showed him her own logbook. It was smaller than the one in the clock room, but the handwriting was the same. She said she had been tracking wrong floor events for 40 years. Over 3,000 cases. Some people vanished. Some returned with no memory. Some, like Mark, remembered everything. She said the elevators weren't machines. They were traps. Old things that existed before buildings, before cities. They attached themselves to vertical spaces and fed on human repetition. The more you rode, the more they learned. And once one learned your name, it would follow you anywhere, even into dreams, even into houses with no elevators. Mark asked how to stop it. The psychiatrist closed her logbook. You can't, she said. You can only choose which floor you get off on. She told him about a patient who had ridden the wrong floor for 40 years. The man was now an elevator repair technician. He worked only on older models. He claimed he could hear which elevators were hungry. Mark asked if he could meet this man. The psychiatrist gave him an address. An old warehouse on the edge of town. No signage. No phone number. Just a door with a single buzzer. Mark drove there that night. He buzzed 3 times. Nothing. Then he heard footsteps. The door opened. A man in his 60s, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, oil stains on his coveralls. He looked at Mark and said, "You're the 8th floor guy." Mark nodded. The man invited him inside. The warehouse was filled with decommissioned elevator cars. Dozens of them. Some from the 1920s. Some from last year. All had their doors welded shut. The man said each one had claimed at least one person. The welded doors kept them from claiming more. He showed Mark one car in particular. Small. Rusted. No visible scratches. But the man wouldn't get within 10 feet of it. That one, he said, doesn't have a floor limit. It just goes until you stop breathing. Mark asked how he knew. The man held up his missing fingers. I got off on the wrong floor once. Took me 7 years to find an exit. Lost the fingers on the way. Lost 3 friends too. They're still in there. Somewhere. He pointed to the rusted car. That's the one that brought me back. It's not friendly. It's just patient. Mark spent the night in the warehouse, listening to the repairman's stories. Every story was the same. Person enters elevator. Elevator goes to wrong floor. Person wanders. Person either escapes or doesn't. The ones who escape always have a mark. A scar. A missing digit. A new fear of small spaces. Mark realized he had no mark. No scar. No missing fingers. The repairman looked at Mark's hands. Then his face. Then he stepped back. You didn't escape, he said. You were released. That's different. That means it's still watching. Mark left the warehouse at dawn. He drove home. He took the stairs. He didn't sleep. The next morning, a package arrived at his door. No return address. Inside, a single elevator button. The number 8 was worn off. Underneath, A new number had been carved by hand. It said wrong floor. Mark threw the button in the trash. An hour later, it was back on his kitchen counter. He threw it in the river. The next morning, it was on his pillow. He moved again, this time to a rural town with no buildings over 2 stories. No elevators anywhere. For 1 year, nothing happened. Then the town built a grain silo with a maintenance elevator. Mark avoided it, but the elevator avoided him too. He thought maybe it was over. He started sleeping through the night again. He even laughed at a party once. That was the mistake. Laughter attracts attention. 2 days later, he found a note under his windshield wiper. It said, "Floor 8 sends its regards." He drove straight to the warehouse. The repairman was gone. The building was empty. No elevators. No welded doors. Just dust and a single footprint leading to a bare wall. On the wall, written in grease pencil, one sentence: "Don't press the button next time." Mark didn't know what that meant until he got home. The apartment building he moved out of 2 years ago had installed a new elevator. He saw it on the news. A ribbon-cutting ceremony. The mayor pressed the button. Floor 8. The elevator went to floor -40 before the emergency stop engaged. The mayor was found unconscious but alive. He kept saying the same thing over and over. The wrong floor is the only real floor. Mark understood then. The elevators weren't targeting him. They were spreading. Every new installation, every renovation, every old building with a modernized lift. Each one was a door that could open to the wrong place. The repairman had tried to weld them shut, but someone was unwelding them. Someone with keys to every building. Someone who rode every wrong floor on purpose. Mark found a name in the psychiatrist's logbook before she retired. The name appeared over 200 times. Different addresses, different cities, same name. The person who rode the wrong floor more than anyone else. The person who never got released. Mark is writing this down now because he just saw that name on his new building's tenant registry. 5th floor, apartment 5B. The elevator in the lobby is old but well maintained. The doors open smoothly. The buttons light up when pressed. But floor 8 glows faintly at all times, even when no one is near it, even when the power is off. Mark hasn't pressed it. He won't. But last night, as he passed the elevator on his way to the stairs, the doors opened by themselves. Inside, a single silhouette. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It just pointed at the button marked wrong floor. Mark ran. He's in his apartment now. The stairs are behind a locked door. The elevator is in the lobby, but he just heard the ding. The sound of an elevator arriving on his floor. He doesn't have an elevator on his floor. His floor is the 3rd floor. No elevator access. The ding came from inside his wall. And behind the wall, a soft voice. Next stop. All passengers off. This is the wrong floor. He's not going to open the wall. He's not going to see what's behind it. But he can hear it breathing. Slow. Deep. The same rhythm from the door made of teeth. The same presence from the black glass reflection. It's here. It was always here. And it never needed an elevator to find him. The elevator was just the invitation. The wrong floor was never a place. It was a moment. A decision. Mark made that decision the first time he pressed button 8 without looking. Every wrong floor after that was just a repeat of the same mistake. If you're reading this, check your building's elevator. Look at the buttons. Is there a floor that shouldn't exist? A number that glows without power? A scratch pattern that looks like teeth? Don't press it. Take the stairs. Always take the stairs. Because once the elevator knows your floor, it knows you. And the wrong floor is always just one button away. Always waiting. Always hungry. And it has all the time in the world. Mark hasn't slept in 4 days. He's barricaded his apartment door. He's written this account on 17 pages. He's going to leave it in the stairwell for someone to find. He doesn't know if anyone will believe it. He doesn't care. All he knows is that the breathing behind the wall has stopped. replaced by something worse. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers on glass, like a reflection trying to get out, or in. He's not sure which is worse anymore. The tapping stopped just now. Then the elevator dinged again. But the elevator isn't real. It never was. The ding came from inside his head, and behind his eyes, he sees the black glass door. His reflection is gone. The door is opening, and on the other side, a panel with one button. It says lobby, but the button is broken. The only floor that lights up is the wrong one. And Mark is out of stairs,